So what is Orbit? So Orbit is our 1-year anniversary for the FileCoin mainnet launch. It was actually, yeah, maybe I can do a brief overview. Ipfs was launched in 19th of October 2020, but that doesn't mean that work on this protocol started in 2020. After our ICO in 2017, we've been working with a lot of cryptographers to make this network ready. You can pay for a pinning service to pay your pin on their nodes. This has been the most common method for a lot of people who are not, one, interested in running their own nodes, or two, interested in running a cluster of nodes. So some of the services that have grown out of the ecosystem in the last 12 months include Pinata, Temporal, Infura, and so many more. So that's Ipfs. But what about, we're talking about peer-to-peer communication, and Ipfs has done a really good job of incentivizing people to change or to shift towards a peer-to-peer communication style. But Ipfs is not a blockchain. So then how do we incentivize people to actually use distributed systems? Well, this is where FileCoin pretty much comes in. FileCoin is a storage network that is designed for the Web3 from the ground up. The way that you can think of FileCoin is that, one, it's not just compatible with Ipfs because it was built on top of Ipfs, but it's compatible with the entirety of Web3. And when we get to what the architecture of Web3 actually looks like, we'll be able to dive deep into what I mean here. And then FileCoin is also not just verifiable storage, but it's cryptographically proven storage. So not just when we say, hey, when a storage provider says, hey, I'm storing this piece of data, we don't actually have to rely on their word to believe them, because we have cryptographic proofs that actually ensure that they're storing data that they say that they're storing. And then the third thing is, FileCoin is also a very massive decentralized network. But beyond these three things, really, I could say FileCoin is also a community. And maybe we can just dive deep into what each of these three mean. So when you're using, I'm sure a lot of, okay, my bad, I should not have said that. I should not have said, I'm sure a lot of you, because Ipfs, I would like to think of it as a layer that will support Web3, but some people may not believe that, right? So I cannot speak for everyone. That's just my own personal belief. I think FileCoin and Ipfs will make a really good layer, not just for Web3 itself or just for these networks, but for the entirety of the web. And what we've done in the last 12 years is not just integrating between FileCoin and Ipfs, but integrating FileCoin with other frameworks as well. So in the last 12 years, we've built bridges for Neo Protocol, Hedera Protocol, Chainlink Protocol, Polygon, Mask. I think I could go on. Like our key goal here is to make FileCoin as usable for anyone who wants to build any type of decentralized or distributed system to store that data on FileCoin. And like I mentioned, the cryptographic proofs that are used on the FileCoin network ensure that if a storage provider says, hey, this is the data that I'm actually storing, that when the proof of space-time, which is one of the cryptographic algorithms that runs the FileCoin network, does a randomness test to check, hey, is this data actually being stored? If the storage provider is actually not being truthful, what tends to happen is that they'll get slashed, they'll get penalized, and that incentivizes them to actually store the data that they say that they're storing. And again, FileCoin as a network has been growing in more ways than one, getting to about 8 exabytes of data stored, from storage providers across the world. That is pretty amazing. I mean, if you can think about how much storage Google has to acquire for themselves, and then think about the cost of that, and then think about people, storage providers, companies who are willing to set up these types of resources to provide this storage for FileCoin users, it's pretty mind-blowing. So then what does our integration or FileCoin and Ipfs being built for the entire Web3 architecture actually look like? So at the bottom of this graph or this funnel, what you'll see is FileCoin and Ipfs storage. And the way that we're envisioning this is for pretty much anyone who's using or building with Web3 technology of any type, of any framework, to rely on FileCoin and storage as their first or go-to storage provider. And then we have storage helpers just above that funnel. And these are solutions that we built to kind of simplify the storing and the retrieval of this data. Storage helpers are actually pretty awesome for developers who would like to store on FileCoin and Ipfs without necessarily having to work directly with FileCoin itself. I mean, just a disclaimer, Ipfs and FileCoin are very, very technical. I think a lot of people who would be in the cryptographic space would also need a good chunk of time to actually understand a lot of the cryptographic elements that go into the network itself. Relying on storage helpers, we found that a lot of developers do not necessarily have to understand the full workings of FileCoin and Ipfs to actually start working on Ipfs, and that's why it's one of the things that we definitely recommend. And then just above storage helpers like NFT.storage or Powergate or Estuary, we have the logic segment of the architecture. And this is where certain smart contracts or application logic is developed. And this is where our bridges to other frameworks have been very, very fundamental. Because if you're, for example, a developer who's working with Ethereum or Near or Hedera, do you have to really understand FileCoin to still store your data on FileCoin? Well, our answer is no. If we can give you the type of logic or the type of bridge that you would need to enable you from the platform or the framework that you're using to still store your data on FileCoin and Ipfs, then we can absolutely do that. And then the last stack here for builders would be the front end. We still have a lot of good Web 2 options here, but we're trying to make the push for Web 3. Like, can we really build front end systems that rely on Web 3 technology? Well, we think we can. And so how does FileCoin, like we're saying, look, we think you can rely on us. We're saying we've built a protocol that can actually store humanity's most important data. What technology are we using to back that up? Well, the first way that we verify storage of FileCoin, or pretty much what this slide is the 4 or 3 steps that users and storage providers use to actually verify storage on FileCoin. And the way that I can explain it is, when you first make a deal on FileCoin, the first process that will happen is it will be chunked, and this chunking process is what will end up creating the directed acyclic graph, the DAG, which eventually becomes the Merkle forest. I really try not to make this very, very intense in its cryptographic terms, but if that's the direction any of you would like, I would be happy to explore that as well. And then so this uses the same process to generate CIDs for any data that has been added on the network. And once the CID has been generated, the storage providers will usually provide an initial proof of replication. What this means is, once your CID has been generated, it means that it's been added to the network. Once it's been added to the network, a storage provider who's interested in making a deal to store your file will say, okay, I have made a copy of that file, and I'm going to copy this code. I'm going to add this and store this copy of the file on my network. So this will be the file. The copy of the file is what will be published to the FileCoin network, to the FileCoin blockchain. And then over time, what the proof of spacetime does is that it runs a lot of randomness tests. And what these randomness tests do is just a proof of spacetime. And what I mean by proof of spacetime, which is the consensus algorithm that's running this verifiability test, is think of it this way. If I leave this chair here for about 2 weeks, and then someone comes and asks me, hey, is that chair still there? What kind of test would I run to actually verify that the test is there if I cannot see the chair? That's what a randomness test is. And that's what proof of space-time is. It's just a test to verify that the data that you say you have is actually there. And so how this specifically works is that the algorithm will send out a snippet of the CID that was generated in the first step and send it out to your mining hub or to your storage provider or to your node. If any piece of that CID is not found in your node, that means you failed your proof of space-time. And in that case, you'll get penalized. But if the algorithm actually runs the randomness test and finds the snippet of the CID that was generated still in your node, then the node itself passes the proof of space-time. And that means that that's verified stored data on FileCoin. Now, to retrieve data that has already been stored, we are working on something that we're calling a retrieval market, something that we're hoping to launch within the next 12 months. So keep an eye out for that. Okay, I'm gonna stop here for a bit because I know I have a couple more slides, but I want to take any questions if there are any. Yes.
If I have data that I don't want other people to know about, how do I deal with that? Do I have to encrypt it beforehand, or is there an option for storing private data?
Great question. Privacy and encryption is something that is definitely always a question, especially for blockchain, because what we claim is that we're building public networks, and we say we're building public networks as a way to stand against people who've used our data that we gave them, and violated our privacy. But, how do the two really gel? You mentioned a really good one option, which is encrypting data before adding it to the blockchain network. That's usually a very good way to go because permissioning for a lot of these blockchain networks is something that has really gotten better over time. And so we have a lot of different permissioning systems built within different types of access controls like wallets that really verify that you're the person who has to access a certain type of data at any given time. One of the ways that you can also do that with FileCoin and Ipfs is running node clusters. So this is something that I had mentioned initially. So if you want to work with a smaller group of people, if you have large data sets that should only be accessed by a certain type of people, you can make this data available within certain clusters or within certain node clusters so that only the people with access to those types of nodes can have access to that data as well.
Okay, another question. The current Web 2.0 is built on a naming system, the domain naming system, which changes like, okay, let's say I go to Chrome and search, okay, let's say I go to Chrome and search YouTube. That information will be changed to IP address, which is the IP address of YouTube. So like in now Ipfs, like how will it know that it is this specific information that I'm searching without finding without knowing the specific node that you understood it?
Great question. So location-based addressing, I think, is one of the major flaws that we pretty much identified with Web 2. And this is the URL-based systems, right? And of course, it heavily relies on DNS. And I don't know how many of you actually looked into one of the reasons why Facebook went down last week is because their DNS servers actually went down. And that means that anyone who wanted to find any Facebook server had to have the actual IP address of the DNS to access Facebook. And as you can see, that is a major flaw. I do not need to know the IP address of a server to access data from it. So with Ipfs and FileCoin, what we do instead of location-based addressing is content-based addressing. And I can just go back to the slide that we covered here, which is this, right? Every time a file or a folder or a website or anything is added on the Ipfs or FileCoin network, it's given a unique cryptographic ID. And this cryptographic ID is what you can use to locate any information or any file, regardless of which node is holding it. So if you have a CID of any file or information that you're looking for, you can do a query on either Ipfs or FileCoin, and you can have access to that data without really knowing either who's storing it or which node is actually perpetuating it or retrieving it. And I think that's one of the major advantages of, content-based addressing versus, location-based addressing. Awesome. Okay, then maybe we can continue just a bit, and then we can take additional questions at the very end. So yeah, so what we've pretty much described is, what Ipfs is and why it works so well with FileCoin, right? Ipfs is for fast, flexible retrieval, and this can happen through gateways, local nodes, or browsers. I love browsers. And FileCoin is for more persistent, longer-term, verifiable storage. And putting it that way, I also don't want to just, put FileCoin in the bracket of it's just a network, it's just a protocol, despite that, it's some of those things. A lot of builders have access to different types of libraries and tools and services that they can use to build different types of applications. And as I've previously highlighted, we've seen more than 500 new projects come out of FileCoin in the last 12 months alone. And so we have, for example, 4 different implementations of FileCoin. One that's written in Go, one that's written in Rust, and one that's written in JavaScript. So if you're a developer and you're thinking, oh man, how do I get started with, with working with FileCoin directly, if that's something that you're interested in, you can have a look at the different implementations that we have and see if, it's something that you'd be interested in working with. We also have different tools and libraries. We tend to call them storage helpers. This would be like NFT.storage or Web3.storage or S3 or PowerGate. Really good libraries or really good services that developers can also rely on. And like I mentioned, work has been growing exponentially. And this is just a quick overview of what we're working with to date. We're just at over 1.2 billion blocks. And so far, the pledge on the network for storage miners has reached close to 120 million fill, and this means that the pledge from storage providers to keep storing storage is just increasing on the FileCoin network, and you can see the active number of miners. We are at 3,405. It would be great if some of you could also become storage miners and provide free storage to the rest of the world. So, what can I build with FileCoin? Well, the way that we have thought about the stack for FileCoin is that you can absolutely use Web3 all the way down your building funnel, all the way from asking your browser from a CID, all the way to this example of Uniswap, for example. This is built on FileCoin and Ipfs, and it's a browser-based service. And the way that you can start using Uniswap is when you go on uniswap.org, for example, and you want to swap out one of the coins, is your browser will ask the Ipfs network, because this would be a Brave browser, would ask the Ipfs network for the CID of this application. And then the front end will load with Ipfs, and then you'll be able to log in with dweb. So this is part of the permissions. If you're using a wallet, this is usually the best place to log in with a wallet. And then storage helpers would fall in this category because, as opposed to, like I said, storing your data directly on FileCoin or building directly on FileCoin, you can rely on storage helpers to help here. And then finally, the information will be retrieved from the FileCoin and Ipfs network. And the way that we're looking at this stack is that developers do not have to rely on a lot of Web2 stacks to build new solutions, that you can rely on a lot of the solutions that we're already building to build out decentralized applications all the way through. So what are some of the storage hoppers that we can work with here as developers? Well, Fleek is an IPFS hosting platform. This is perfect if you want to share your websites, if you want to share your applications, if you want to share pretty much anything, censorship-proof, information with the rest of the world. And this works with pretty much any framework that you can think of. Docker is a good place, React as well. If you also like Webflow, Fleek also has a very good integration for that. And the way that it works is that you create a GitHub repository with the file or the website or whatever it is that you want to upload on the FileCoin network. And then you add in your build settings. And once you've added in your build settings, what GitHub will do through the GitHub Actions, because we have a GitHub Actions tool that actually allows you to store data directly to Ipfs and FileCoin from GitHub, is that it will run this action and then deploy your site to Ipfs, and then it will be backed up on FileCoin. So like I said, this uses GitHub Actions, the CLI, that is the command line interface, and then the GraphQL API. Some other storage helpers, if you want, I've mentioned the word storage helpers a couple bit, but maybe just to explain what I mean when I say why storage helpers, why would I recommend this as opposed to building directly on FileCoin and IPFS. One of the best things is that we have really good workflows with a lot of the storage helpers that we're building. So NFT.storage, Web3.storage, Powergate, S3, these are all built by individuals and companies within the FileCoin ecosystem who wanted to make it easy for other people to work with FileCoin. And they've been working on simplifying the different types of deals and workflows that will make it that much easier to actually get started here. And then they also help, like I mentioned, simplifying deal making. I don't know how many of you have actually tried to store files on FileCoin, but one of the biggest challenges, if you wanted to do it directly, was finding storage providers to actually make deals with. So with these storage helpers, storage and deal making is completely free. And in some cases, some developers would be amenable to making payments for these types of storage. In that case, working with a storage helper makes it easy to negotiate these types of storage deals. And then you can store, on Ipfs and FileCoin in one simple call, as opposed to multiple different calls and running multiple different terminals. Working with storage helpers makes it more of a one-click type of solution. And then the Fleek Space Daemon. What is this? So this is designed for building desktop applications. You're a developer, you want to make really good applications that are not ideal for the web or are not ideal as web apps. This would be a perfect tool for you to use. And it's a combination of a lot of the technologies that we already use within Ipfs and FileCoin. So that would be Ipfs, Textiles Buckets, Powergate, which I will go into just shortly. And then it also runs on your desktop, so it gives you the perfect environment to test your applications within your development environment as well. And it can definitely be bundled with other desktop applications. To use this, all you need is a JavaScript client and a gRPC API, gPRC API. The third storage provider that we offer for developers would be S3, and S3 was just built in the last, I think, 4 months, and so far we've been able to use it to make up to, I think, what was the last number I looked at? Close to 4 million verified storage deals, and that is a pretty incredible feat. This is perfect for general Ipfs and FileCoin usage, so if you just want to store or make deals for storage of data on FileCoin, S3.tech would be the best place to do it. And the data is immediately uploaded to FileCoin and Ipfs, and it stays with up to 5 or 6 storage providers across the world. So if one storage provider, says, I'm tired of running my node, I want to shut it off, there's additional storage providers who will keep copies of your data. To use this, definitely need HTTP API and a web interface, because this is a web-based solution. The data may not actually be that visible, but if you see down here, this is the S3 page, and what the green represents here is total successful confirmed deals for storage on the network, and these are waiting confirmation. So you can actually get on the website itself a live view of how the storage deals are happening on FileCoin and on S3. And then NFT.storage, this is perfect for NFT enthusiasts. So if you're working directly with NFTs of any type, NFT music, NFT art, NFT, whatever it is, NFT.storage would be the best tool for you to use. All you need to do pretty much is upload your data. And once you get your CID, this is immediately stored on NFT.storage. And storage and retrieval for NFT.storage is completely free. So, and it actually gets backed up on FileCoin as well and stored with multiple storage providers for permanency and persistence. You will need a JS client library for this, so that would be the JS Ipfs, and then you'll also need to work with a configured remote pinning service for this. And then lastly, it's Powergate. Powergate is my favorite. I shouldn't have a bias, but I do. It's my favorite because it enables developers to do a lot more with their application when they're using Powergate than with pretty much all the others. The others are more of click, 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 and then everything is done. But with Powergate, you actually have to do a lot of sourcing, because you'll be working with JS and Go clients of FileCoin. You'll also need to do. You'll also need to work with several commands, because and this works with the command line interface, and it works with Docker containers, which runs both an Ipfs node and a FileCoin node, and you can use it at any given time to store, retrieve, or state your data on FileCoin. And one of the best things I love about it is that it provides default configs for miner selection. And what this pretty much means is, once you've prepped your data, once you've prepped your application, once you've prepped your website, and you're ready to publish it either through a bridge or through to FileCoin through Powergate itself, Powergate will present you with default configs for different types of miners to select from, which makes life pretty easy. So yes, so based on the different types of storage helpers that I've gone through, you can see exactly why we would recommend using or relying on a lot of storage helpers to persist data on FileCoin and Ipfs. And our goal is, once we've built out a lot of our logic flow and built out all the different types of bridges that we can really build with all the different frameworks that we have coming up day and night, is that anyone can enjoy all the different possibilities of decentralized technology and decentralized networks. We have resources that you can use to kind of keep learning. We have resources for getting started with Ipfs and FileCoin. We have a website, proto.school, which offers some great interactive concepts and tutorials. We also have NFT.school, if you're more inclined to learn about NFTs and what all the rage is. And then if you're a developer and you just want to interact with other people who are passionate about FileCoin and Ipfs and Web3 as a general subject, you're welcome to join us at one of the dozens of virtual hackathons that we host every single month. I think that will be it for now. You can also reach out to me on FileCoin Slack if you're a Slack user, or if you have any questions about what it's like building with FileCoin. We have an entire builders team that would be very interested in helping you navigate any of the challenges that you may face. And with that, we also offer support for independent projects, up to 5,000 of funding for any project that would be working with either Ipfs or FileCoin, and you are very welcome to submit your proposal. You may not know in details what you want to do with it, but if you have an idea, we'd be happy to help you flesh out what that would look like as a final end product.
Okay, I've seen that the storage, okay, IPFS storage facility or something are free. So like, how do the developers earn money? Do they like sell ads or something? Okay.
Okay, storage providers earn rewards, or what we can call mining rewards. Couple ways that they do that. Every time they pass a proof of space-time, they get a reward. Every time they confirm a block, they get a reward. That's two of the ways that we've been able to incentivize storage providers to join the network.
So you said for the NFTs, the storage is free. But now for like the files that companies want to upload onto the FileCoin network, they have to pay for them. And that's why they have to use storage helpers who help them negotiate for these files to be stored, yeah? You said, is that what you said?
Deal making, couple ways that it works. If you're a large storage user or data storage user, or you have such large data sets, because like I mentioned, if you're storing something like an NFT, which would be less than 5 MB, it wouldn't make sense, for a storage provider to charge you for that. But if you are, for example, a large institute like NASA, and you had large data sets of space data that goes into maybe up to, 50 or 60 terabytes worth of data, those are the types of, users that we charge for deal making, not for developers who would be working with maybe smaller or, in terms of sizes of the data sets, or also in terms of the size of the files themselves. So a lot of the deal making is towards more bigger clients and larger clients that would have larger kinds of data sets that would have perhaps even more value for humanity. So for example, one of the things that we've done with Internet Archive is we've been trying to crawl the entire internet for dying languages. And what we found is that there was close to about 50 languages that are dying, and because the URLs keep going offline every year, we wanted to save these languages for the rest of humanity, a couple of years down the line, where we want to say, hey, what were people doing in 2021, we would have this data stored on the FileCoin network, and this type of data comes in close to about, terabytes and petabytes worth of data, and we usually tend to upload it to specific storage providers who provide a unique deal to store that data permanently forever. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. I'll be around for the rest of the day if any other questions come up, and I will be happy to also have different types of conversations.
What does Web3 mean for different projects? Like for Solo, for example, what does it mean for you guys? How are you incorporating it in the Solo blockchain?
Yeah, so for us, of course, like Web3, I want to bring a perspective of like, we're always thinking about the end user. And at the end of the day, Web3 for me personally is about empowering the end user, the consumer. And so like in Web 2, if you compare it to Web 2, where we don't have sovereignty or full control of our data, Web 3 enables us with a future where we have more control. We can take advantage of our own data. We can take advantage of our own our own content, as well as like we have full independence on how we create and share value to one another. And for Celo, I think that has been also our North Star, our guiding principle. I think the way that we position the blockchain is to be mobile first, meaning all the design decisions of the blockchain in terms of like the consensus mechanisms, as well as like the way we write the contracts, as well as like the programs that we create for builders, is meant to be accessible to everyone, because at the end of the day, our mission is to enable the prosperity for everyone. And so that being said, the products, or at least like the projects that we build on, we're conscious about like, okay, how will this empower the end users, right? And how will this like create real world use cases such that at the end of the day, blockchain and cryptocurrency and these technologies are not just for those who have, you know, the privilege of learning about, you know, technical complex stuff. So right now, we have a lot of like projects builders who are mission aligned. I wanted to, for example, highlight the project I'm doing here. I just came from Kibera. We were in the middle of Kibera. And we're linking them to a platform that enables them to do artificial intelligence work in their mobile phone, like data annotation. Like, you know, your email allows you to identify, okay, is this a traffic light? You know, the CAPTCHA, right? And this industry is huge, like $500 million US around the world. But then people who can, and this type of work is accessible for everyone. But right now, the people who can do that work needs a laptop, and not everyone can have a laptop, and needs a bank account to get paid. And our innovation is, we have a developer, their name is Corsali. They developed a platform that allows you to do this type of work on your mobile phone. And then the advantage of cryptocurrency, as everyone knows, is that even if the company is based in the United States, they're able to remunerate everyone immediately, almost, instead of like waiting for an entire month to get compensated. So I see Web3 both as the consumer and the end users having more options available. The technology is theirs, and like these products gives them more options to increase their welfare and their well-being. And I think we're moving towards that direction, and I think the momentum is there.
Oh, that's very interesting. We look forward to seeing the results of the project. Looks like it's going to benefit all of us here. Yeah. Okay, so just to move on to the next question. George, since you're under Binance Smart Chain and there are so many blockchains platforms coming up, and there's always the question that comes about interoperability. Yeah. So what does it mean, especially for the Binance Smart Chain, which I know they're doing quite a lot these days to ensure that many dApps are being built on the platform. So what does it mean for different projects, and what verticals do you have to solve the interoperability problem?
Okay, so I'm not an expert on Binance Smart Chain. Just as much as I work for Binance, I'm not really an expert in that line. But Binance Smart Chain provides a lot of opportunities for anyone who wants to build any decentralized application. So basically, it opens doors to any developer who has an understanding on how to build dApps. So it opens all the, you know, it's like exponential potential for, you know, for building anything that you feel like you can build. So I believe anyone who has any idea and anything they want to place, they can put it on Binance Smart Chain. And that's why the company is working very hard to train a lot of developers on that particular area. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I could also extend that question to Peter. Maybe you could answer us on the interoperability question. So in IOTA, what does it mean to incorporate the interoperability in different projects and dApps that you're building?
I think a perfect example is that I think recently we released our first beta for IOTA smart contracts, and it has support for various languages like Rust, Ethereum virtual machine, and I think those Go inside it. Yeah, so we are hoping to get more and more people developing. Even if you're like an Ethereum developer, you have experience on that. We are hoping to get you guys on and developing on IOTA and get the benefits of IOTA ecosystem. I think for me, that's a perfect example.
Yeah, thank you for that. So, what would full interoperability in Web3 look like? Maybe Angelo, you could help us with that.
Yeah, interoperability is an important concept, especially like in the blockchain world. The way I understand it, so right now we have different projects, right? And essentially, I think these projects are creating their own siloed networks, such that you have one community in blockchain X, another community in Celo, another community in blockchain Y. And so instead of us maximizing the principle of blockchain, which is decentralization, we're inevitably creating fragmentation in this ecosystem. So interoperability, even for Celo, is an important priority because maybe this is my personal take, like there is no one blockchain that can solve all the problems, right? Like blockchain as a concept offers a lot of potential in revolutionizing the future. But then, because it's hard to build a blockchain, one blockchain would have a superior benefit over the other, another blockchain would be inferior over the other. That. So I think interoperability for us is facilitating or realizing that we need to communicate with different chains. And then, of course, developing the technology to do that communication. So from the point of view of Celo, recently I wanted to share, we launched Optics, which is like a gas-efficient interoperability standard that allows Celo to communicate with other chains and basically a cross-chain communication system. It's linked to Ethereum, to Solana, to Polkadot, to Near. I hope I'm not missing something. Cosmos and Cadena. Yeah. And our idea, of course, is like these blockchains have their own ecosystem of users and have their own dApps. And these dApps, of course, as I've mentioned, our mission is enabling prosperity for all. Those dApps should be able to take advantage also of the other blockchains. So I guess like it's a beautiful marriage of like Web3 enabling us to take advantage of the internet, the benefit of the internet, and then blockchain enabling us also to capture better value. Interoperability is an important mission for all the blockchains because basically we need to talk, right? Like we need to coordinate, and even for developers, because as I have said, like each developer would find each of the blockchains having trade-offs in terms of the decisions, and it's important to, instead of like, oh, okay, I make sacrifices by choosing one blockchain over the other, take advantage in like that communication.
Yeah, I think it's so important, especially to bring it back home. I know a lot of developers locally participate in a lot of hackathons to make money. So I think it's easier if blockchains are interoperable. Our audience is able to participate in as many money-making schemes as possible, not financial advice. Disclaimer. Okay, so the next question. Maybe I could just take it to everyone. What tools do you recommend for developers who are looking to build on your chains, individual chains? I could start with the one holding the mic.
Sure. Yeah, I'll invite you to. I'm not an engineer myself, but I invite you to take a look at the document. So Optics. If you go to docs.celo.org, you will find there the documentation explaining what Optics is. I'm also very happy to connect you to our team just to explore this, right? Like even if you're developing in a different chain, to us this type of conversations, we call them like we dream together, we design together. And I think like your input as developers and your own experience as you explore different chains would be important, because Optics has started for Celo, but it's an ongoing process, especially as the landscape continues to evolve. So I guess that's my invitation to the audience.
Okay. Peter?
Oh yeah. I could advise you to go to iota.org. We have some docs in there. But yeah, you have the benefit of me who's here and a software developer who's also working at the foundation. So you can feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions on Twitter or even here. And yeah, the opportunity is just, it's not limited. There are a variety of opportunities in the space. You could be a front-end developer still doing blockchain. You could be a back-end developer or a full stack. Or you could sit in the side of infrastructure where you're just managing the nodes and making sure they're alive and people are able to reach the resources as soon as possible. So, yeah. And I think for us, the go-to language would be, I think, JavaScript and Rust. But then again, yeah, we also have support for Python.
Okay, great. And speaking of Twitter, don't forget our hashtag FileCoinOrbit. Yeah, please go ahead, George.
Yeah, so Binance is usually a very big ecosystem. So I'm in the .com business. Who has an account with Binance? By show of hands. Okay, almost half of us. So by the end of this day, everybody should have an account with Binance. That's the only place also you can buy FileCoin, right? So, for resources, the best place to get resources and learn about Binance Smart Chain is on Binance Academy. So Binance Academy is one of the branches of Binance company. So you can learn so much from Binance Academy, from everything, blockchain, decentralization, and all this Binance Smart Chain and how to use it and so on. So I think that's the first step for anyone who wants to start, their journey to development. I believe that is the first step you can do, especially if you want to learn a lot on how to use Binance Smart Chain.
Yeah, I agree with the Binance Academy bit. I think the Binance has really worked hard to give a very comprehensive and simple documentation on how to even just open a wallet, basic things that people assume. I think Binance Academy is amazing.
Absolutely, and it's absolutely free. So you just type on Google Binance Academy. It has over 200 resources which have been put together just to help grow the ecosystem. Binance is about education. We really push and help people, learn this ecosystem as much as they can, because we believe this is the future, and we stick to that particular aspect. And the more people learn, then the more people use the resources, and more people use the technology, and the more the ecosystem itself expands.
Okay, great. So currently, the next question is on what's hot in the market right now, NFTs and DeFi. So in the different chains, how has interoperability helped in the adoption of NFTs and DeFis? So let's start with Chilo.
Yeah, so DeFi is a very big priority for Celo as well. The other thing that I wanted to share to many developers is we have an ongoing hackathon on DeFi for the people. I think that the end of submissions is until, so it launched in October 1, but teams and developers can continue to submit until like early November. So if you search DeFi for the people hackathon, please check it out. I think there are at least up to $2.5 million in bounties and prizes on these initiatives. So yeah, so DeFi for us is important. Of course, like again, our mission is creating conditions for prosperity for everyone. We're doing a lot in terms of like refining the blockchain, the protocol, so that more developers can build on it on more products. Right now, we have a decentralized exchange as well as a swap. We also have different, so the names, I'm going to drop them, but you can all find this in the website. Ubeswap, Mula Market. We also have a new developer named Good Ghosting. They're doing gamified savings. A no-loss lottery called Pull Together. So very exciting products. And of course, our invitation is it's part of our mission to develop these products. Like I want to tie it, for example, to the product project I'm doing with the UN World Food Program. So they receive their income in cryptocurrency, and then our ecosystem partner, you guys might know them, Kotani Pay. Kotani Pay allows them to convert their Celo to M-Pesa.
I think it's going to be interesting. I'm looking at current trends. You've seen China banning Bitcoin, for the what is time, and then coming up with their own cryptocurrency. And we have Nigeria, who also, I'm hearing they're coming up with the e-Naira. It's going to be interesting. Oh, it failed.
So I think from this session we can summarize with, from what you've discussed, is we've all learned a new word, or at least for some of us, interoperability. Yeah, so let's not work in silos. Let's be in a community. Like, I think here we are well represented with many chains. Let's work together. And I want to say thank you to the speakers. Thank you, George. Thank you, Angela, and thank you, Peter. I was glad to be your moderator today. Yeah, please, let's move on to the next session.
IOTA is a DLT, is a distributed ledger technology. Some of the advantages it has is like immutable data transfer. It means that whatever data you're storing, it's impossible to actually change the data that is being stored within the IOTA blockchain. So one thing I've used to kind of try and store this data within the IOTA blockchain is something known as MAM channels. It's a way of storing the data in the blockchain. Number one, the first thing is that the message is encrypted, which is masked. And then the message is confirmed to be coming from a device, meaning it's authenticated. And then a continuous message stream is created in a tangle that will carry on until the device stops publishing data. So that means that if you have a device, it could be a laptop, it could be an IoT device, you could endlessly just publish data into the IOTA stream until form a stream of data. Depending on the position of where the data is, because it actually forms sort of a graph. Depending on the position where you are, you can actually access a certain amount of data or the whole of it. And yeah, to do all these things, you need something known as a root ID and keys. And keys also helps in encrypting and decrypting the data, because you may store data in the blockchain, but you don't want many people to see it. So you may use something like a root and key to kind of encrypt that data. Now, how do these two come in together? So as I said, like when you store something on IPFS, you get a hash that says it's this file. This file has a certain hash. And then that hash, ideally you could store it in an immutable database, being the blockchain. And in this case, you're using IOTA. But you could use other blockchains. You could probably use Ethereum. You could probably hash a document and put the hash on Ethereum, or EOS, or the Binance Smart Chain, or in a smart contract. When you put it in that blockchain, it acts like a source of truth. What it means that if I come in again and tamper with that data, someone can easily go to the blockchain and then reference and see, okay, the hash that this guy is giving me is not matching with the hash that is already on the blockchain. That you can know that this document isn't legit or has been modified. And actually, that's what the demo aims to prove. So the way I've structured this project is quite simple. It may seem complex. So under utils folder, we have 3 files. You can call them classes. So one file is dedicated to just reading a file from the local machine. Another file is just dedicated to handling anything that's dealing with IPFS. In this case, it's uploading. That's the IPFS helper. And then the third file is called the mamhelper.ts. That is just dedicated for uploading content to the blockchain. It all runs from the main file, which is the index.ts. And the first thing we do, we have a sample file here, which is called sample. Over here in sample, you have a file called sample.txt. And the first thing we're trying to do is to fetch that file and convert it into a buffer so that we just have it in code. And for that, we're calling the file helper function, which is one of the utility functions that I've put in there, just to deal with that. And we're calling the fetch file function. And if you go there, you can see this is just a file, and it's just dedicated to fetching a file known as sample.txt. That's all it does. For the second bit, if you have a file, the next step you want to do is you want to try and upload the file to Ipfs. Hence, we have this bit here. You're saying if there's a file, we call on this helper function, and then we actually call the helper function .add file function. And if you go to the Ipfs helper.ts, you can see there's a add file function where it, first of all, it connects to a node, and then in this step, it actually goes in and uploads the file, because you can see over here it's node.add file, pin is true. After that, we display the CID of the file, the unique identifier, the hash that you get when you upload a file to Ipfs. And then we actually log the path in which can be able to fetch the file. So this is one of the providers of this Ipfs. So it's like Cloudflare is running a node on Ipfs. And from that, you just have the basic HTTPS cloudflare.com, ipfs.com/ipfs, and then at the end bit, you add the CID or the hash. When you add the hash there, on the URL, it will automatically just try and fetch the file. And that's what this file does. And the last bit is pretty much easy. So if you have the hash of the file, which is, again, the location of the file, what we do is we try and get the date, what's the current date at the moment. So we have these functions here, and then we try and create an object where you're going to store all this information. And the information you're going to store is, number one, the name of the file. The second thing is the date and time, the current time, and then you're going to store the hash. And yeah, by storing the hash on the blockchain, once it's in the blockchain, it's immutable, and anyone can check the hash to see if it matches what someone else's house. And then once you do that, we call on this function, which is the mum-helper.create function, which is again the third helper file. Yeah, what it attempts to do is to try and connect to, again, a blockchain node, and then try and post this information from it. So over here, you can see it has connected to a couple of Ipfs nodes. You can see the reference, you can see the IP address, and you can see the identifier, you can see the version. You can now see the hash that is generated, the CID, which is over here. And now it's saying your file can be found here, which is the path where you can see the file. And we have a couple of things related to the blockchain, like the seed, address, root, next root. And then over here, it shows that now the hash has actually been posted to the blockchain, and it's available here. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to try and open this link. We see it in the blockchain, the hash and the timestamp. And then you're also going to try and open this link to see the file that is stored. Yeah, so upon clicking on it, it takes me to this site. It's sort of a block explorer. And over here, the message.json, you can see the file name is sample.json. You can see the date today. It's 23rd. You can see the time it posted was at around 458, and you can see the actual hash, which is this. You can go back and try and open the file itself. So when I click on this Cloudflare link, it opens up on the browser, Cloudflare, ipfs.com, like that. Then you see hello world. And if you actually go to the actual file, which is sample.txt, you can see it's hello world dd. Now what I'm going to try and attempt is I'm going to try and add more text and see if the hash changes. And all that data will be posted on the blockchain. So I've said hello world FileCoin orbit. So I'm just going to stop this application again, and I'm going to run it again and give it some time. So you can see the hash ends with VSJZS. That's the first hash. Over here, the hash has changed. It's another different hash, because here it ends with NJ8B. And what else? You can see the file is posted, and you can see it, the link here. So I'm just going back to the same link that I opened. Yeah, so on the same link, it's 502. So you can see at 501, this file was posted again, and it has this unique hash, which ends with NJ8B. And previously, the hash ended with SJZS. So it shows that these two files are actually different. When you change a document and upload it on IPFS, it gets a different hash. Then I'm going to do one more demo. This time I won't change the document itself. So the document just remains as hello world FileCoin orbit. And I'm going to try and upload it again. And we're going to see if the hash changes. So again, the hash is still the same, because you can see it ends with WNJ8B, WNJ8B. You can see it's already posted on the blockchain, and you can actually check. Now it's 503. Yeah, and you can see at 503, this data has been posted, and the hash is still the same. I'll speak about use cases, and then I think after that I'm done. Yeah, so for the use cases, the ones we have especially, we want to prevent forgery cases, especially in these sensitive government documents. Like you have like certificate of export, certificate of origin. And the same logic applies. When you hash these documents, it gives you a unique hash. That unique hash we normally store. You store it on the IPFS. I mean, the hash is stored on the IOTA blockchain, and we can come back and check if let's say an incoming document is coming and you want to check the validity of it, the hashes need to match. And then the other unique advantage is that you can see the history of a document. From that, you could see, like, from the first demo I ran, where I posted the first file, and then I went to the second file where I modified it, then to the third file where I just left it like that, I didn't modify. You can actually see the trail of events that has happened to a document. And the same thing happens in like government agencies, because you may have like a document that has been rejected, and again it needs a review. So that document again, yeah, will go uploaded on the IPFS. The hash will be on the blockchain. When it gets reviewed, the hash will change, and then you just reflect that on the blockchain. Again, access control can be implemented to restrict access to people who can access a different document. So that's a bit advanced. You could that information that is shown over here, you could actually obfuscate it using like a seed or a key. But that's like an advanced topic. But it's possible to have that information hidden or have it limited to a specific number of people. And then, yeah, there are possibly some kind of limitations with FileCoin, with IPFS, and some of these other solutions like FileCoin could actually come in. My name is Peter Opara. I work for the IOTA Foundation, and together with the local NGO known as Trademark East Africa, we are working on a project where we want to enhance trade within the East African region. I do many things, but primarily I'm a software developer, so I assist in the developing of some of the tech we are using in this project. I also do a lot of infrastructure management. So if it's infrastructure, think of nodes, blockchain nodes, IPFS nodes, so things like that. It was super interesting because IPFS is a technology we actually also use in our area, and I've also worked a lot with it. I've done deployments with it, run my own private IPFS or connected to other ones, uploaded files. So it was interesting for me, and I saw it was like a perfect opportunity to share how this technology can be used. Oh, I think the panel was interesting. I also think the first speaker, the presentation was actually quite interesting because it was not only about FileCoin, there were also other these players in the ecosystem like NFT.store, which offers solutions for NFTs, and a couple of other solutions. It was nice hearing about them. Actually bookmarked them so that later on I can just try and check them out and see what I can do with them. 10. 10. I want to see what guys can come up with. I want to see how I can help the space, how I can help people get into IPFS and FileCoin and actually develop something that will probably change their lives or other people's lives.
I learned what is IPFS and what is FileCoin. I go to school, watch Netflix, program, something else, just what people usually do except of the program part. It's 7 Deadly Sins. It's an anime. I program in C#. I program in C#, HTML, and JavaScript, and I've been programming for like 2 years, almost 3. Yeah, definitely. I like the free snacks.
Okay, Chege Rachel is my name, and I'm a software developer. The event was great, and I learned a lot, especially on the IPFS and FileCoin, which are new technologies being used currently. And it was a great experience from the creative process of how the speakers gave out. It was a great experience. The lady, she's a great inspiration, especially because she's working with the blockchain section, which is a new technology, and I'm glad to learn about it. Yeah, the food was fantastic. Yeah, okay, I was recommended by a friend who is also in blockchain, and I'm glad that I'm here. Yes. Thank you, Jordan. Okay, thank you so much.